uniqueness of what's happening here, because both of these guys on stage with me have risked their lives to be here with you today, to talk to you about this stuff. And in my personal estimation, from having spoken to many insiders, this is the dream team. You're never going to get two guys who are more highly aware of what really is going on behind the scenes than what you have on this stage tonight. And so, try to, again, wrap your head around this narrative. I've been aware of this stuff for 25 years. And then along comes Corey Goode, who you first wrote me in 2009. But it wasn't until October 2014 that you started to tell me things that tied all of the other pieces together of everything, every other insider, what he'd been telling me.
In 2009, I was vetting you.
Spacecraft. And that's 70 years ago that Roswell happened. They've had 70 years to play around with portal technology, anti-gravity, all of this amazing stuff. And what we're getting from what Emery has been telling us here, he was working for a base in which samples came in. And Emery, how many intact bodies of different types of species did you actually end up handling for the military?
A little over 300.
Little over 300.
Maybe they might be a little bit different in the ears and the size of their skull, the size of their fingers, but they relatively all have the 5-star pattern. 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. And there are, of course, other extraterrestrials, which you can just think of any other organism on this planet, any other being, such as, a cicada, or a dolphin, or a manatee, and just imagine that evolving over billions of years into this form. But the ones I was working with were very human-like, and they were very compassionate and very intelligent, and they all had telepathic capabilities. And telepathy is an actual language that you have to learn.
So Corey, what is your understanding of the relationship between people who built pyramids and people that are still, and I say people as in extraterrestrials, people who are still working for our government black projects now? Are they the same individuals that built the pyramids that are still working with us now? Let's talk about people who built large stone structures on Earth, and are they still around now? Did they actually leave? Did they disappear, or did they just go quiet and undercover?
Well, about 55 to 60,000 years ago, a group that originated from Mars crash landed onto our planet after a series of catastrophes on their planet. They landed in what is now Antarctica. It was positioned differently on the globe then. They landed in an area where they knew ancient builder race technology was. The pre-Adimites, their group landed, and they began to genetically tinker with all of the human beings that were here already, and animal life.
Oh, yeah,
so
I'm not going to mess with it.
While they were tinkering with the genetics on the planet, races that were here to watch over us and to watch over genetic programs going on here already didn't like it. It was affecting their programs, so they caused, or were a part of cataclysms hitting the Earth, which wiped out this pre-Adamite race, mostly. Their cities were covered in flash frozen waves that covered Antarctica. The remnants of the people that were living in outposts that were these pre-Adamites survived in South America and Africa, up into North Africa and even Europe. These beings look very much like us, except they were from a different planet. They're thinner and taller, and but they have elongated skulls.
Our very distinguished guest for this evening is Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
Our guest tonight found out whether there was any land north of the North American continent. He made that first discovery flight, and I must say that Admiral Byrd, our guest tonight, is not only our greatest living explorer, but he's been an inspiration to countless Americans. Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really usable, not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole, on the other side of the South Pole, from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
That's a tremendous
So
challenge.
there's a lot of adventure left down at the bottom of the world.
Well,
Admiral, do you hope to see that?
I do.
Well, Admiral,
Yeah.
would you say that since you've been to both the extremities of Earth, are these expeditions to such far-off places, are they getting easier because of modern techniques, or is danger still close at hand?
Well, it's a little risky, but nothing like it used to be with the old slow planes and the small cruising radius where we had to put down bases. We replaced the dog teams, and of course that was a big improvement. But now the planes go much faster and they're safer, and they have a much bigger cruising radius. You haven't got the danger of a terribly heavy load.
A multinational effort to excavate key regions of Antarctica in search of artifacts from a flash-frozen alien civilization created by refugees is destabilizing the continent's massive ice shelves, according to Secret Space Program whistleblower Corey Goode. He furthermore reveals that secret military bases in Antarctica are using some of the artifacts for weapons development in violation of the 1959 Antarctic Treaty, which stipulates that the continent's resources will be only used for scientific purposes. Disclosure of the Antarctica ruins is still imminent, Corey reports, as a number of key variables impact on when and how much is to be revealed to the world about the discoveries, while maintaining secrecy about the ongoing military programs to weaponize alien artifacts. In a detailed briefing given to me on March 16, 2017, Corey shared additional details about the pre-Adamite civilization, supplementing the data he previously put out. This new information was originally slated for release in an article, Endgame 3, as the sequel to the popular Endgame 2 article and video, which focused on secret Antarctica excavations. Corey said earlier that the extraterrestrial civilization identified by him as pre-Adamites first arrived 55,000 to 60,000 years ago and established outposts all over Antarctica, which notably has a landmass almost twice the size of the contiguous United States. He described them as standing approximately 12 to 14 feet in height and possessing elongated skulls. Corey also described how they created a hybrid species, Homo capensis, according to anthropological classification, which became ruling elites or demigods in ancient South American, Asian and European societies. In the March 16 briefing, Corey began by explaining that the pre-Adamites had established their main base right over ancient builder race technology, which included a Stargate or wormhole device very similar to that depicted in the popular science fiction show Stargate SG-1. Corey said that the show was an example of a soft disclosure in which the US Air Force took the lead in revealing key elements of the technologies developed by the ancient builder race, who had established a travel grid throughout the galaxy using traversable wormholes hundreds of millions, if not billions of years ago. When the pre-Adamites first arrived in Antarctica, they quickly asserted control through their advanced technologies over this area populated by human settlements at the time. With their advanced medical technologies, the pre-Adamites then began many genetic experiments and created hybrids that became a servant class. Corey previously released his description of the flash-frozen bodies of the bioengineered hybrids, or Homo capensis, during his latest visit to Antarctica in early January of this year. Corey explained that the pre-Adamite programs interrupted 22 genetic experiments being run by human-looking extraterrestrials first established 500,000 years ago. In a prior report, Corey elaborated that a super-federation comprising 40 to 60 of these races had established competing genetic engineering programs with surface humanity. Corey also described how the pre-Adamites engaged in conflict with the human-looking ETs running their 22 genetic experiments, as well as reptilians doing likewise for global influence. Given that the pre-Adamites had established a physical presence on Earth, this gave them an advantage in establishing ruling bloodlines over the Americas, Asia, and Europe, as explained in a previous article. At the same time, humans who had escaped into the Earth's interior to avoid multiple surface catastrophes monitored how the different extraterrestrial races competed against each other for influence and power over surface humanity, who was still recovering from global catastrophes. One of the inner Earth races that pride themselves on their pure human bloodlines, the Anshar, had a historic connection to the human settlements in Antarctica. However, the Anshar did not cooperate with the pre-Adamites because they considered them to be sociopaths in terms of their treatment of the native Antarctica population and other regions of surface humanity where they had established colonies. Corey said that the pre-Adamites treated humans in antiquity in a similar manner to how modern humans treat dogs in terms of crossbreeding for multiple purposes. The pre-Adamites, along with the reptilians, were a big problem for all humanity. The Anshar were part of a confederation of worlds that sought to make things better on the planet by providing knowledge and technological assistance as described in the Sumerian cuneiform texts.
They left their planet in stages. Their planet had a series of major catastrophes long ago, like half million years and beyond. They left, the larger part of them, their elite left, and they created an ark on the moon.
Okay.
And on the moon, they had all of the life from their planet, much of which has been seeded here. And they also were using that as a high ground point. They had a outpost on Earth already in that area where they ended up crash landing, but they were up to mischief on the moon as well, and they ended up getting attacked there. And because of this attack, they had to leave the moon, and they had their last 3 large motherships that they landed down in what is now Antarctica. And all of that is still under the ice. They, to survive, they cannibalized their technology from their craft and created a new civilization, which built what many of us believe is Atlantis. And it's confirmed that a number of the extraterrestrial races that we've dealt with grew or evolved on a planet much like that.
Emery, I want to bring this back to you. Are you personally familiar with the motherships under the ice in Antarctica from your own time working for the government?
Absolutely.
Okay, could you tell us a little bit about that?
They have been excavating this for quite some time. Even on this day, they are down there right now taking out artifacts and archaeological. We have some very specialized ground penetrating devices that can go very deep into the earth and shoot these slow volumetric wave formats into the planet, and it can bounce back, and we can measure the exact all of Earth elements of what it exactly is. It's 400 times greater. It has a 400 times greater perception than a CAT scan or an MRI. So we can actually use this on your body to like zoom into just a couple cells and zap the cancer cells. And this is the stuff they're holding back from us. But getting back to Antarctica, there are craft down there 3 miles long. There are huge civilizations down there, and they are now taking things from Egypt and from Peru, some artifacts, and stashing them down there to throw off the archaeologists when they do come forward with this. Because the truth is, it's going to really disrupt this organized religion around the planet and the history of what we've all been taught here in America. They're going to have to rewrite the whole book.
Emery Smith.
We are here with Emery Smith and Corey Goode. Truly a roundtable of insiders, giving you cutting-edge glimpses of a world that most people have no idea about. So Emery, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Dave.
And Corey, welcome back.
Thank you. An article came out just very recently that was talking about all of the military personnel and scientists that wear Fitbits, you know, the watches that monitor your health. Well, they have GPS tagging with them, and It appears that no one turned off the GPS tagging when people were working in these special access programs. So recently, the map was released of where all these little pings were coming from, and they were revealing secret bases. One area was down close to the Ross Ice Shelf, down in Antarctica, right in the area where I had been brought previously and saw an underground base system that was under the ice.
You've recently discovered some paths that are essentially heat maps constructed from fitness data from the popular Fitbit fitness tracker that amazingly people going to these unknown secret bases.
I'll go back out for now because I want to go to Antarctica. Those are actually GPS trails and it shows everything. You can zoom in on these towns, anywhere where people are going, you see these. You can see how they're getting to Antarctica. Little lines going down here, so this is a hot spot here. This is where the secret underground base is. They made a little trip over to this little mountain over here, and it turns out that there looks to me like there's a little dome city or something. Little domes all over the place.
So I started thinking about how I could correlate that to my research to see if there were people that left their Fitbits on, because one of my theories is the people that are working on this technology are very well paid, so obviously a lot of them would have things like fitness trackers and Apple Watches.
Admiral, an expedition to which I believe you're the advisor is now en route. What is that expedition doing?
Well, that's the icebreaker Atka, and it's a reconnaissance expedition. It's going down to the South Pole area to make certain observations and to look for some bases.
So have you heard of any of these places, such as Antarctica, having some bases?
Oh, definitely. Antarctica has a base there, and there's some crash craft there, and there's an ancient civilization, you know, that they discovered there. And they're building the story for that to release to us soon, in the next couple years. But first they got to get all their ducks in a row, and they have to, of course, go through this base, and they also have to go through the crafts. They have to go through the ancient ruins that are there, and, you know, put something together that's, you know, a good story that we're all going to believe.
Well, it's already starting to happen. If you remember months ago, not too long ago, that we had a university that stated, we have geothermal pockets under the ice where there's life, there's flora, fauna, there's all types of genetic diversity occurring, you know. So we're getting little bitty drips here and there. So I think that we should keep an eye on what's going on in Antarctica for sure.
The biggest hot spot and the biggest thing everyone's talking about right now. Yeah. And I can also back you up as saying there are many of these, because, you know, using this backscattered radar technology that I was involved with, you can see large openings, large spheric openings in the earth and the Earth's crust, and even down near the mantle there, that are hosting their own atmosphere and pressure, life, and all sorts of things. And now getting back to Antarctica, they, you know, the great thing about Antarctica, as I told Dave before, is, you know, they're all like, well, when is that going to be? You know, who's going to be the one to come forward on Antarctica? And I said, it's Gaia. The Earth is slowly melting that away right now, and no human is going to have to come forward, because another year or two, that craft is going to be shown all the way, you know.
Well, we're helping the situation along because of the excavations we're doing with steam excavations. What I was told is that the high-pressure steam, dropping of bags and hitting them with microwaves to clear out large areas, is causing a major ice melt that's going underneath the ice shelf and further lubricating it and causing it to break apart at a much faster speed than it would have previously. A lot of what's occurring is geothermic activity, because the base that I saw had a giant tower that was a geothermic generator.
The other process, which is also destabilizing the Ross Ice Shelf, is the use of large pressurized steam hoses to reach the pre-Adamite ruins. Corey elaborates, quote, "They are connected to large pressurized tanks in which large bags of water are hit with microwave beams to cause them to explode with steam, opening large areas. Fine-tuned excavations have been done with men holding pressurized hoses shooting steam. The melting ice is causing rivers to run under the ice shelf and lubricate it, causing it to slide even more, as well as producing collapse from the weight of the ice above as the ice heats up from the geothermal activity." End quote.
Why this interest in the bottom of the world? Nobody living down there, is there?
No, it's pretty cold. There's only one permanent resident, that's the emperor penguin. The little ones live further north. I tell you one reason they're interested. It's by far the most valuable, important place left in the world for science. That's why the scientific groups all over the nation are really interested. But more important than that, it has to do with the future of the nation, those to come after us, or even during your lifetime.
So look, this is a guerrilla war that we're doing right now. We're on stage with you guys. This is not being suppressed. There's a whole bank of cameras right here, okay? This is going to become public. This is going to become something everybody knows. And Corey and I, back in, I think it was the end of 2016, we were told, do this right now. Get this story out immediately, because if you don't get this story out, you're going to be scooped. And within hours of when we released my article, The Antarctic Atlantis, all of these tabloids start talking about that they found a city under the ice in Antarctica. And of course you say, well, it's a tabloid, it's not really true. That's not the point. The point is that that information had never been planted in the zeitgeist before that moment. Now, when we look at the big picture of what's going on here with these guys on stage and why we're at this event today, folks, it's very important to understand that there are some very basic laws of physics that this military-industrial complex is lying to you about. We're here because of a technology, if you want to think of it that way, a technology of consciousness. This research that I'm about to go into is something that these extraterrestrials want us to know. You have been lied to for so long, you don't realize how powerful you are. Oh, what could one person do against the government? What could one person do against the system? Wait a minute, guys. Corey, one of the things you did is work for the Federal Reserve in your prior incarnation, let's say. And what do these guys know about the power of our consciousness, and how are they using it against us?
They understand that money is a principle that goes back a very long time. It's a Babylonian money magic system. It's used to enslave and control people, and it's very effective. When I worked there, it was interesting that a number of secret societies were there. They tried to actually recruit me. I was invited to go to a Masonic lodge, which I did, one in Plano, Texas, and visited with them for a little while, and it was pretty much a bunch of just old guys sitting around, you know, not really doing much, and then they kicked me out, and I have no idea what went on then. But then some of the people I worked with, Order of the Black Sun, invited me to go out on a boat with them, and I didn't really fully understand that they were a part of this group yet. And they got me out on the boat on Lake Louisville in Dallas, and all of these temptations were around, and I knew intuitively that they had cameras on board, and they were trying to entice me. They had women doing drugs below, underneath the boat, and they were really trying to recruit me, and I knew what was going on, so I was very, very careful about where I was and where I went. They were trying to recruit me and bring me in because some of them knew I was involved in other programs, and I was just gathering information because I was already starting to release little bits and pieces of information online and blogs and on forums. And then that's, you know, shortly before I communicated with you and started to do so overtly. That was like 2013, I think.
How do these corporate military occult powers that are controlling our world, how do they use the power of our collective consciousness to win for hundreds, if not thousands of years? At least up until recently, they've been winning.
Okay.
How do they do that?
They've understood for eons, and science has understood for decades, is the observer effect. When a scientist observes an experiment, their perceived idea of the outcome has an influence on the actual experiment. So we live in a consensus reality. We're co-creating this reality together. And we are all sparks of the one infinite creator, and we have that creative ability. So we can't know about it. They have to keep us ignorant of it. And then they use it against us. That's why they use movies and propaganda, religions to manicure and control our co-creative consciousness to be the real power behind their magic. That is, we are their magic. Our
actually telepathic, and our consciousness affects reality. We impact reality. So actually, the entire reason why this event has happened, why you're here, why all these vendors with all their booths are here, the whole deeper reason why we're here today gets back to scientific research proving that 3 out of 4 people all over the world, out of the 7 billion we have, 3 out of 4 of them will decide not to commit an act of war or crime or terrorism just by a group of 7,000 people meditating. Isn't that crazy?
I'm going to show you very quickly some of the early research. This is the first study, and I won't go into it in great detail except to say that this experiment was performed in the Middle East during the peak of the Lebanon War in the early 1980s. It was hypothesized, based on many previous smaller experiments, that if enough people were collectively experiencing and stimulating this fundamental, powerful field of peace within, that there would be a radiated influence of peace that would affect the behavior of people throughout society. People would wake up in the morning and they'd decide, hey, I don't think I'm going to kill anybody today. What a novel thought. That, with some expanded comprehension, a less narrowly cramped, narrowly self-centered, acutely stressed vision, that those desperate acts of terrorism simply don't really have a fertile field to fall on. So this chart shows a dotted line going up and down, which is the rise and fall on a daily basis of the number of people who are meditating as a group in Jerusalem. About 1,000 people on average, sometimes more, sometimes less. And the solid line represents progress towards peace in the war in neighboring Lebanon. And even before the benefit of statistical analysis, you can almost see from the raw data that progress towards peace, measured by reduced war deaths, reduced war injuries, reduced number of bombs, that progress towards peace goes up and down almost in lockstep with the number of people who are meditating as a group, radiating this influence of inner peace to become outer peace. When this was subject to mathematical analysis, the likelihood that this is simply due to some fluke, due to chance, is less than 1 part in 10,000. To be able to say something with this certainty that group meditation prevented war, that is a really remarkable finding. When this was published in the Yale University Journal of Conflict Resolution, it ignited a firestorm.
This has been proven scientifically, and I want to make that point clear. 70 2% reduction in crime, terrorism, war-like activity, and fatalities, and a corresponding increase in the health of things like the economy. So how could this be possible? How could this even happen? It seems really bizarre. But what I'm trying to say is that your emotions could be thought of like a temperature. Now let's just imagine if...
Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one.
About the consciousness of us meditating here also affects other planetary systems and universes, and it's almost interdimensional. And the reason our consciousness has been getting elevated and elevated is because there's other civilizations, either a little bit at the same level or at a higher level, that are doing the same thing somewhere else. And it's affecting the entire universe, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It's a healing of not only the people to change us to be better people, but it's also healing Gaia. It's helping the planet understand that there are people here that care about the planet, and we are going to clean up this mess.
Absolutely. So we have been taught that we don't have power. We have been taught that we are weak. We have been taught that this military-industrial complex is so interconnected that they're listening to everything that you do. You can't plot against them. You can't do anything to stop them. You just have to get out of the way and let the tanks roll on into your town and let them take over. That's what they would like you to believe. And what I'm trying to say here, folks, is that just with the kind of harmony that we're creating at this event, this weekend, we have enough people to make this happen. We have enough people to create a dent in those statistics that will be measurable and scientifically provable after we've gone home and we go back and look at the actual crime statistics.
John, why on earth are you, a quantum physicist, even here on a night where we're talking about transcendental meditation?
That should be obvious. Quantum physics has basically revealed the fundamental unity of life. Surface diversity, but deeper levels at the molecular, atomic, subatomic, subnuclear, electroweak unified, etc., culminates in the discovery of what's called the unified field, fulfilling Einstein's dream of revealing the fundamental unity at the basis of the diversity of the universe. Now, what does that have to do with us?
How dare you say I talk funny and then come out with that? So you're saying that the idea that things are separate and distinct from each other on a material level is illusory. Is that what you're saying?
Illusion. That's correct.
It's a sensory illusion.
That's correct. But you can go beyond the senses. And that's what meditation traditionally is. Properly understood, it is a technique to pull the awareness from the outwardly directed senses powerfully within to experience deeper levels of mind, simpler, quieter, more unified levels of the thinking process, and then slipping beyond thought, that's where the transcendental comes in, beyond thought altogether to experience this universal unity at the basis of mind and matter.
So we can access neurologically in our own minds the unifying field of creativity from which all energy and matter has come, perhaps even the cosmos and universe itself. Is that what you're saying?
That's right, and it's not just philosophically interesting, but it's really practically important because that meditative state is considered to be a fourth state of consciousness. That means not waking, dreaming, sleeping, in which the entire brain, as we've heard, is engaged. And that orderly, coherent style of functioning of the brain develops the full potential of human life. So truth be told, meditation, transcendental meditation, comes from the ancient wisdom of yoga, and it's designed, it's engineered to develop the full potential of the brain. And as a side benefit, stress-related illness, melts away.
John, do you reckon if through meditation we can achieve access to a fuller state of consciousness, it may help us to bring about a global revolution where we've found a society based on spiritual principles rather than material and economic ones?
It's the only way.
That's amazing. That's why we're here. So it's a little bit of a bridge to try to go from, okay, these guys are talking extraterrestrials, and I've confirmed this, by the way, we verified their military service records. These guys are real. This is not something we're making up. Believe me, we're not making a lot of money on this. This is about people coming forward to get us into a Star Trek civilization, because the technology exists right now for us to have anti-gravity, for us to have free energy. Yes, it's already here. Corey, you've had a great deal of interaction with different types of extraterrestrials, as has Emery. Could you give us a sense of what is the real reason why the positive extraterrestrials are here on Earth today? They haven't become public yet. They haven't shown themselves to us collectively yet. But through these back channels, like what they're doing with you and me and Emery, there is a message they want us to know. Could you give us a quick summary of what their message is for humanity?
Well, there have been two main messages from all of the positive ET groups out there. The first one is to demand the release of suppressed technologies, which is something we are beginning to organize to do, to begin to become activists, to demand it. Because if we're waiting for someone to come up and announce it, it's never going to happen. The second thing they request of us is that we expand our consciousness or become more spiritual. And that's something that this group is here to do today.
Emery, in your interactions with positive extraterrestrials, which you've had plenty of, could you explain for us what, for somebody who, let's say in the future, that this is our ground crew, this is our SEAL team. These people might be some of the first ones in this audience, you out here. You might be some of the first ones to actually have interspecies contact. Because you're on the cutting edge. You know about this before everybody else does. You're willing to come out here and sit on the grass and listen to us talk about this stuff. So, Emery, say to the people in the audience now, based on your own personal experience, what is it like to be in the presence of one of these benevolent extraterrestrials? What does it feel like? What happens to you?
Well, one of the first meetings I've had, they made us memorize about 150 to 300 questions, because right upon meeting someone a little bit more advanced than you, especially if they're telepathic, within 0.03 seconds, all those questions are answered. And now that just raises another million questions. But at the same time, there's this overwhelming feeling of love and gratitude that you even made the effort to make contact. And I think that is something that everyone needs to know. It's not about them coming, here to shake hands. It's about us also reaching out and putting that intention out, because it's the most lovely experience that you'll ever probably encounter, by having every emotion in your body just open up to a stranger, because being in their etheric field, you get to experience their energy, and it's 110% love.
Emery, you have had direct telepathic contact with some of the most advanced ETs out there in our neck of the woods. And you've described before this overwhelming feeling that happened when you made that mental handshake with them. Taking a lead from what Emery said here, could you describe what that experience was like for you? What happens to your consciousness when you make that deep of a contact with these beings?
Well, you're really opening yourself up. One of the things that was noted in the training, and as I slowly begin to expose us to different types of beings, is the different positive beings had different ways of communicating telepathically. Some of them there would be that internal monologue voice that you hear right now, when you're saying, what are these guys talking about, aliens? And that voice, they'll use that voice to talk with you, or sometimes they will send you images and smells, tastes, all of your auditory responses. They scan you, and if you have a certain memory that is tied to a smell or a feeling, they'll use a combination of all of that in communicating with you. So there are a lot of different ways to communicate telepathically, and that is one. Some of the higher density beings communicate with the emotions, the smells, the tastes, and many of the others just use the monologue.
What is their message?
Their message for humanity is that we need to become more loving, we need to become forgiving of ourselves and forgiving of others. We need to focus on becoming more service to others on a daily basis. And we need to focus on raising our vibration and our consciousness.
Many pharmaceutical corporations has used the technology from the DNA from the stars to help us, heal certain genetic factors. And now you're hearing about in science that they are, working on. We can do, gene sequencing where we can, find just one gene in there, and we can manipulate that gene so you don't have to have this problem anymore. And that is true, and that's all because of the technology through what they have been doing for the last 30, 40 years. But the new protein that they just discovered is a protease inhibitor which blocks inflammation. And all disease and trauma starts with inflammation. Your body is an amazing body, and you don't really need anything. It can do it, and that's why I developed my patented technology where I concentrate the healing properties of your blood and inject it into the peripheral bloodstream or into your joints so you don't have to have surgery, because your body can regenerate. It just needs some help. So we've figured out if you decrease all the inflammation in the body, not only will you not have cancer and things like this, but we can actually extend the telomeres and change the frequency of the DNA so it's in a more homeostasis mode. And to keep the body in a homeostasis mode is the most important thing for it to be functional.